What's going on, everybody? This is No Friendo, and yes, we are talking about Nintendo Switch 2 again on this channel. I wasn't really going to talk about this system anymore, but with the most recent report and leak coming out right now from a very credible source, we got to talk about it. So this is coming to us from Video Game Chronicle, VGC, and Andy Robinson posted, development kits for Nintendo's next console are now with key partner studios with launch planned for next year, sources have told VGC. According to multiple people with knowledge of Nintendo's next-gen console plans, the company is likely to release new hardware during the second half of 2024 to ensure that it has ample stock available on day one to avoid the kind of shortages seen with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S. Now, what that says to me there is that they've been working on the console for a while. The kits have been out there for a while, and everybody's had a chance to develop some games for it and are going to release some next-gen Switch 2 games for the console. Although specific details on the console are being kept closely guarded, those VGC spoke to indicate that the next-gen console would be able to be used in portable mode similar to the Nintendo Switch. So it looks like it's going to be a dockable and also a portable console. Thank goodness they're keeping that same form factor, that is for sure. Two sources of VGC spoke to suggest that the console could launch with an LCD screen instead of the more premium OLED in order to bring down costs. Now, this is very interesting to me, guys, because as you know, when the Switch OLED launched, it was only $50 more than the original Switch. So how much more are these screens going to cost? If they just recycled the same screens that are on the Switch OLED right now, wouldn't they save a little bit of money? So I think that's very curious that they're not sure if it's going to be an LCD or an OLED. Why would they go back? But that's what we're going to talk about in this video, guys. Don't get your expectations too high when it comes to Nintendo, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. Especially considering the increased storage needed for the higher fidelity games. The current Switch comes with just 32 gigabytes of internal memory, whereas the Xbox and PlayStation, they come with over 100 gigabytes, right? Well, I mean, what they're saying there is pretty much that the system's going to have a little bit more storage space in there to hold these bigger games. But I mean, come on, we're downloading a lot of our games now anyway, even if it is on a physical cart. So like its predecessor, the new Nintendo console will also accept physical games via a cartridge slot, the source has said. So this is interesting because there's a lot of debate whether it's going to be backwards compatible, and I think it's going to be, and I'll explain why here in just a second. Other details such as backward compatibility support for Switch games, physical and digital, remain unclear. Nintendo has said it wants to convert as many Switch users, 100+ million user base, as possible to its next system, although some third-party publishers are said to have expressed concern that legacy support for Switch games could negatively affect sales of next-gen titles. Now, I want to talk about this real quick, guys, because I think this is really interesting. Are we really going to see a console from Nintendo that's not going to be backwards compatible on a very successful handheld hybrid? I don't think so. I think the next-gen Switch is going to be 100% backwards compatible. And I'll explain a little bit more on that in a little bit. Let's finish the article, though. Nintendo did not immediately respond to VGC's request for comment on this story. Tokyo-based industry consultant Dr. Toto told VGC that a 2024 console launch would make sense for Nintendo. And it goes and say that it just makes sense for the market, so on and so forth, and just some more numbers and stuff like that, why it does make sense. And it does. It makes perfect sense that they're going to release it the middle of next year, maybe even around Christmas time, before Christmas. That does make a lot of sense. Now let's talk about the backwards compatibility of the Nintendo Switch 2. Like I said, guys, it's going to be 100% backwards compatible. Look at what they did with the Nintendo DS over to the Nintendo 3DS. Those were completely backwards compatible consoles because they were so darn successful, right? They were one of their best-selling consoles of all time. Why would they go back on this? Why would they build this huge, massive user base, which is constantly being updated all the time, mind you? Look at Nintendo Switch Online. They're still working on Nintendo Switch Online. They're still adding more games, and there's more games to come. Why would they abandon those users when they're still building on it? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? They would totally abandon that idea and then because most of us Nintendo Switch gamers are going to want the Switch 2. I mean, let's be honest here. Most of us are going to upgrade. Why would we want to have the OLED and a V2 Switch or a Switch Lite and this new Switch 2? Like, that doesn't really make sense. Let's trade in our old Switches, right, and get the Switch 2. I think that's what we're going to do. And it does make sense that they might go with an older screen, But then again, really, does it? Why would they go back on that? And that's, I mean, that's where we got to get our expectations in check here, because Nintendo has let us down time and time again, especially the Nintendo fans. We've seen consoles come out that were underpowered when everybody else was hitting these high numbers and making these really fantastic games. Nintendo was, releasing their consoles with not as much power, but it's about their library, right? So if you think about it, Nintendo's focused on their library. Look, but I could see them, going back to an LCD screen to cut costs. I mean, that does make sense, but truly ask yourself, would you pay $400, $450 for an OLED Switch 2? Or, $300? Would you prefer like a console that costs $300, $350 with an LCD screen? I mean, I think us true gamers that, that really love Nintendo IPs, which is a massive user base, would pay that extra money to have the OLED with the Switch 2. I mean, or maybe they'll release it with, an LCD and then eventually go OLED and drop the price. I don't know. But, with all this news coming out from VGC, this information coming from them, it's really interesting. And it brings up a lot of questions. Is it going to be backwards compatible? Is it going to have the OLED screen? I mean, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I get it, guys. It's frustrating. It frustrates me. Like every week, there's a new rumor, new leak about it. But this is what I think is going to happen, guys. I think it's pretty much going to be the same form factor because it's so successful. Like I brought up the DS, the 3DS. Those consoles were so successful because of what they were, and they had such a great library. And that's exactly what you're seeing with the Nintendo Switch, is a great way to play video games, whether it's on the go or at home or tabletop mode. I know my kids love playing on tabletop mode. And look at the library. The library is the best library on any console, in my opinion. Tears of the Kingdom. We're going to get a new 2D Mario game that looks fantastic. Super Mario RPG Remake. Metroid Prime 4 is going to be coming out. Metroid Prime Remaster. I mean, we got so many remasters and remakes on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's such an amazing library that it just doesn't make any sense in my head to have a next-gen Switch that's not 100% backwards compatible. Launching the Switch 2 with thousands and thousands of games, and so many great ones, would be the best thing for Nintendo to do, in my opinion. So yes, I think it's going to be 100% backwards compatible. And I think we're going to hear about this Switch 2 here real soon, guys. I think, it's August 1st tomorrow? And I think we're going to be hearing about it real soon, like within the next couple months. And then we'll probably get a really nice presentation about it. We'll be able to find out all the information on it and then get a launch date. And I think it's going to be an excellent console. I really do, because the Switch is already so successful. Why not build on top of that? The way PlayStation did with their consoles, the PS4 to the PS5. I mean, they built on it. They made the PS5 a better console, and they brought all these users over. And then Xbox with all their backwards compatibility. I mean, to me, the signs are there. The signs are all there that the Switch 2 is going to be 100% backwards compatible, and we're going to be seeing this console as early as mid next year. So anyways, guys, I will see you on the next one. Bye.